Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. Welcome back to Foundation Paper Piecing Series 3, this time for the month of May. And yes, this is our third cycle of free videos. People are falling in love with foundation paper piecing. It's really catching fire. I think people are teaching each other. I saw that happening in a quilt retreat. Once I taught someone, they were now teaching everybody at their table and everyone was excited. Why? Because foundation paper piecing is so much fun. So whether you're a seasoned viewer, you're frequently here watching, or brand new, welcome. We are here every single week, sometimes multiple times a week, to record video to show you our process and help you be successful with foundation paper piecing, patchwork, whatever that might be. We love sharing what we've learned, and we love learning from you too. I've learned a lot of things at the most recent quilt retreat where people are showing me their technique. I loved it. So again, kits are the way to go. You get all of the same fabrics you're seeing here. I love that, including even a backing fabric you're binding. The only thing extra you need to add would be a little bit of fusible fleece or batting, the Cali Dell. We're loving this product. It's a nice size, 45 inches by 36. That'll do multiple wall hangings. You don't need to buy a new package each month. And of course, you're always going to be getting the pattern inside your kit. So let's just unpack that. Our team invests so many hours, so many days with each of the patterns that we create. This is exclusively designed here at Shabby Fabrics. And as you've come to expect, full color, right? We all know it's so much easier to interact with a pattern when it's full color. When you're getting your kit of fabric, you're going to open up all the beautifully folded and arranged fabrics, being able to easily identify which fabric is which. We have, of course, very specific cutting sizes identified for each fabric. And I think a customer favorite, I know a customer favorite, is with each cut, you get to peel off a sticker and sticker that fabric. That is one of the most important parts about foundation paper piecing, is staying organized. Because with some of these fabrics, like this background here, you can see there's a lot of pieces. Look at all those cuts. You couldn't possibly keep all of that organized. I know I can't. And I have a pretty big mind for details, but there's just no way I would stay organized. So I love that I grab this out, grab my stickers, make my cut, sticker, make my cut, sticker. And then of course you're going to get all of those groups together that are in the same letter, and you're off and running. The other thing people are loving is they don't have to run out and Xerox anything. The foundation papers are included with your patterns. So when you get your kit, if you want to start sewing in 3 minutes, you can start sewing immediately after getting your kit. So I'm always so proud of the team and the effort that we all put to make sure that you're really presented with a very impressive and well-tested product that gets you sewing just as quickly as possible. So with this month's project being May, of course, Mother's Day, always happening in May of each year, a beautiful basket of tulips for mom, as well as some daisies. I just love the symphony of how these colors all came together. So this is going to be just reminding you of the process of foundation paper piecing. Remember, I said this is series 3. So if you want to go back to even our very first video of series 1, where we take that deep dive in that entire process of how foundation paper piecing works, by all means do that. Same thing with series 2, even series 3. Just last month, we did the cute Easter bunny with the eggs. We took that deeper dive into the process. So this month, I'm just going to give you a few pointers. We're going to actually be making the bottom portion here of the basket and giving you some pointers for fussy cutting the fabric and getting that alignment just where you want it to be. So let's just move that aside for the moment, and we will show you that basket. We've already done our upper portion of the tulips, and I'll just flip that over so you can see, the different sections come together and that they were sewn together with the upper portion. Just a reminder, we have been really enjoying that when we sew one entire section to another, that once those are sewn, we're removing, actually even before we move on to joining more sections, we're removing the paper really from the seam allowances. And that's something new that we kind of start doing. We don't want extra paper in these seams. It's just more bulk to press out, more bulk to deal with. So that's why you're seeing only the paper removed from the seam allowances, but not the rest of the block. Notice how stable this is. We love that. And remember that that solid line there is our perfect 1/4 inch. That's why the paper is still on. So I'll just put that aside for now. That was just a reminder of like, why is some of that paper removed, but most of the paper is still on? So I wanted to go ahead and touch on that. So let's look at our portion of our project. That is our basket. And of course, we have kind of our sky that we have on either side. Notice we have our stickers on. That just lets me know I'm getting them organized, P1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So with this fabric that's in your kit, rather than just kind of placing that anywhere, you can see it's big enough, ample big enough to easily cover P1 and 1/4 inch around with plenty of room. The first thing that we discovered, see how that's running very evenly, very parallel with our sashing. That wasn't by luck. So we recommend that the first thing that you do with your fabric, if you're going to be picking up the kit, is fussy cut it straight. And there's a note here that we're cutting it to 3 by 6.5. So what does that mean? That might be a new term to some of you. And you can see that right now, this is the repeat of the fabric right here. Well, if I just put my ruler here and I just cut straight across, notice this is kind of descending. Fussy cut means lining up with a motif on the fabric and cutting that parallel versus lining up with something on the ruler. So I want to establish that this portion, this is going to be all in a line, all in a row. So I have my ruler just at the bottom of each one of those flowers. That's how I fussy. I pick something and line up my ruler so it's touching the same place on that motif all the way across. I'm going to pick that right there. And why do they call it fussy cut? It takes time. You're finding a very specific sweet spot. And I'm going to cut that. Now my cut is 3 by 6.5. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that 3 now. Now that I've established that this is parallel, this is all running the same. Notice how that is hitting at the same place. I can just lay my ruler down with my 3. Just like that. And I'm using my fabric to measure. I'm not really using any of the lines on my mat. My fabric is king now. And now that I've established the line, this is fussy cutting. And we're going to cut that to our 3 inches. Now you can, it happens to be a 6.5 inch ruler. So I am going to line up my ruler parallel with my fabric. And I'm going to give a cut and give a cut. This was the first step we took to try to ensure a nice alignment. I have definitely looked back at some of my earlier quilts where I just kind of, I don't know, it's like I was not paying attention. And my plaid is kind of wonky and things are, drives me crazy. So if you too really appreciate alignment, this little bit of extra effort is absolutely worth it. The other thing that Tammy mentioned is by knowing, since this is perfectly aligned across the bottom, this time what we decided to do is we made sure that instead of just kind of just cutting this out, notice how it's a very precise cut. Why is that? Because we knew if we fussy cut our fabric and precisely cut our paper, that if we could line them up and keep that precision. So I hope that's making sense. So we know that our fabric is going to be on the back side of that, and that this has been fussy cut. The paper's been very specifically cut, and we know if we align that exactly like that, it's going to come out. So that is a step that our sewing team definitely said, please, please let everyone know. And I'm adding a little more glue than I historically would because I don't want that to shift. And I'm just keeping that absolutely parallel and pressing. Now we're off to our what is really the process of foundation paper. Number one, the first step is that the first piece needs to be glued with the wrong side down, and it's the glue, as you saw, is here. The fabric's on the back side, the writing's on the opposite side. Now we're over here with the line between P1 and P2. This begins a process of trim, sew, press. But the first thing that we need to do with our add-a-quarter ruler is to place that with the pointed tapered edge, not the edge with the lip. We'll be using that shortly. Placing that on the line, and I'm just to the left of that line, so that when I fold my paper back, I should have folded exactly on that line, and it looks like we did. I give that a nice firm crease, turn the add-a-quarter around, and I lock that in, and I slide it. I make sure that is absolutely locked in. That's just been my habit. And now we'll cut. So that's the trim. I should have said trim instead of cut. That's the trim. Now, before we can do S, which is sew, we have to say, all right, we know, of course, P2 is going to be going here. And make sure that you have properly identified this beautiful blue. You can see this is a light blue. So just make sure it's the brighter, more intense color. That will be placed right side together. And of course, as you flip this over, what's the goal? Just like it always is with foundation paper piecing, is to fill in the space for P2 and 1/4 inch all the way around, which happens to be that line right there. That's a great spot. I like that spot. I'm just going to flip this over, put in a pin, and in this instance, we can sew from this edge on our line and all the way off. So when I get ready to do foundation paper piecing, and when you get ready to do foundation paper piecing, some things come into play. Number one, I grab for my Microtex size 70-10 needles. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Is this a deal breaker? No. I have definitely done plenty of foundation paper piecing with a size 80 needle. I couldn't even find my Microtex 70s. And the project came out just fine. I've just found that when we use the Microtex 70, it is so sharp. It just perforates this paper in a way that when I go to remove that later on, it's just easier. Again, not a deal breaker, but if you think of it, I'd grab a pack of those. The other thing that we do is we bring our stitch length back to a 1.5. The BERNINA by default is a 2.5. Why do we do that? And that is to, again, perforate the paper. And because we're going to be removing the paper later on, we want to make sure we're putting more thread in a given distance so that when we take that paper out, things aren't coming out. Thread's not ripping out. It's going to be stable because you've added a lot more thread in a given distance. So I'll head to the machine. We're just going to start right off the edge, might as well. Come right onto that line, sew on that line and straight off. Before I do that, I'm going to get my iron heating up to full hot because we're going to sew and then we're going to press. So let me meet you at the sewing machine. We'll sew that and we'll also do the opposite side in the next step. So we're just going to keep doing TSP. Okay, so you can press that with an iron. If you're joining us for one of our quilt retreats, which we would love, by the way, we would absolutely love that. I think I get more out of these quilt retreats than the people that come. It's just an amazing chance to meet people and hear their stories and connect and what are they working on and put a a face to a name. I love it. But if you're at one of the retreats, ours or someone else's, I know what that's like to have to wait in line for an iron. I'm like, I don't want to wait in line. I want to keep going. You can always use the Clover roll and press. The whole point is to press, whether that's with the Clover roll and press, or maybe that's with an iron. However you choose to do it, this is the time that we do the P portion or press. So we trimmed the fabric. We did that. We sewed and we pressed. Here's the great news. We just keep doing that. TSP, TSP. This time it'll be on the opposite side. So you can remember that we simply place our add a quarter slightly to the left, fold that back, just the paper there. Give a good crease. If we're happy with what we're seeing, crease it really good and hard. Flip your add a quarter around, lock it in. Here it comes. T. And that we know before we can get to our S, we need to position our fabric, making sure that we're right sides together, putting that in position. I like to just simulate that I haven't missed anything, that I've definitely covered that area, and I can see that looks really good. Just double check it one more. Yep, we're good. Flip it over, pin, and once again, we will start sewing. Let me move that over just a touch so I'm out of the track of my presser foot. Right off the edge, on the line, and right off. Okay, we have T, S, P so far. And now we'll press to the outside. And whether you're doing a shape such as this that only has 3 pieces, or maybe you're working on a shape that has these, it doesn't matter. TSP, TSP, TSP. This is why foundation paper piecing, while not at all intuitive, I am the first to admit that it is very learnable, very repeatable, and actually very relaxing. You just get in a rhythm of doing the same thing. Once you have all of your pieces on, this is when you go back and cut precisely on that outermost drawn line. So we'll go ahead and do that together. I do want to show you about sewing units together. And some of the nomenclature that we have written on our foundation papers. By the way, this is Carol Doak foundation papers. There's all kinds of brands out there. We just feel like this is the brand that has the most strength. It doesn't easily tear, yet when you want to tear it out, it comes. So it's trying to find that perfect balance of the ability to hold up throughout multiple layers of assembly, multiple folds. But then when you want to remove it, it comes. So we just felt like this is really the gold standard. And that is what you have in your pattern as well as your kit, if you're going to be picking up the kit, which of course includes that pattern. So once you have your unit trimmed, this is the part I wanted to point out. Notice how it says this side joins J, K, L, M, N, O. Look at that, J, K, L, M, N, O. Our foundation papers that we print here guide you into success, and I love that. Most foundation papers do not show you that. They just give you sections, and you kind of have to visualize, how does this go together? The papers that were here that we've ripped away in the seam allowance said this portion joins to N, and this portion said that portion joins to O. We guide you through that. That is part of what we offer in our amazing printed foundations. So as it says, this portion will join here, and we keep the paper on at this point because My favorite part of this whole thing, I don't have to find a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If I can sew on a drawn line, I'm going to nail that 1/4 inch seam allowance because that is a 1/4 inch. So stack these directly on top of each other. Give a good pin all the way across so nothing is moving. And then we will sew right on our drawn line. We'll press, and that's when you would begin to remove the papers. All right. Such a cute, cute block. And let's look how we did. Isn't that adorable? Let me point out the basket. Remember the focus really today, since we already know how to foundation paper piece. Let me just press this real quick. I can see this wants to press downward. And that's natural. Why? Because look at all of these seams. Look at all of the more tension. That seam just listed toward that P because there's so few sections there. Go ahead and go for that, or open, or whatever you want. But I could see that seam was begging to press downward. So I'm like, okay, let's do that. But look at our basket. Because we took the time to fussy cut the fabric initially, once we established the line, we went ahead and measured our 3 inches and we established a nice cut. And then of course, that very well paid off for us because we lined that up very perfectly with our paper as well. So that is our block. And of course, at that point, you're going to put that aside. You've got some daisy blocks to make. So 2 cute purple fabrics in there. I thought this was just such a pretty combination. Spring's my favorite season. Everything's blooming. All the flowers are popping out of the ground. There's such a celebration of color. I could not resist. I was like, tulips, daisies. Okay, do them all, right? Do them all. That's what spring is all about. So if you have not caught the bug yet for foundation paper piecing, hopefully today I hooked you into learning this is not hard. It's not intuitive, but you can see with trim, sew, press, it's not a super huge equipment intensive facet of quilting. Grab your add-a quarters, whether you like pink, yellow. Again, the Microtex 70 needle is lovely. Is it required? No. A simple glue stick and a shortened stitch length and you're on your way. Such a cool facet of, obviously, of quilting. I'm in love with foundation paper piecing. As you know, we will be having new projects every single month. You don't want to miss out on this. So subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell and bring a friend along. My favorite days are not just quilting, but quilting with the people I love. So thank you for giving me a few minutes of your day to show you some of the features about Foundation Paper Piecing Series 3 for May.